Yep. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. In the types of pain created,
Yep.
will you explain how superiority is painful for the person feeling superior?
Very good question. Yep. Many of you think feeling superior is a good thing, right? For yourself. It's just a bad thing for others. Right? And remember, the goal is, God's truth is, what's going to make us happy is equal, us believing we're equal. So this is God's truth. We are all equal. And let's say I'm feeling superior, right? How is that bad for me? Well, what it does is it actually tells me internally that I am more important than you are. Now, as soon as I believe I am more important than you are, I will go ahead and make a whole lot of choices and decisions that are out of harmony with God's truth about being equal, which obviously will cause subsequent pain to my soul. I'll make a whole heap of choices. So, for example, people start attacking me and I don't understand why. But it's because I treat them like they're inferior. And as soon as they feel that, most people want to rebel against that, so they attack me. So a lot of the times we don't understand that actually God's laws are already in operation trying to correct the behaviour. So a person who believes themselves to be superior actually engages and actually attracts a lot of very negative behaviour towards them, right? And that's been purposefully designed to correct the behaviour. If they remain in a position of superiority, they will choose to sacrifice others for themselves in all situations. Right? Now, if I give some examples of that. For many women who become pregnant, they believe their life is superior to the child's life, and so they justify an abortion. Can you see that? That is a feeling that my feelings are more important than this unborn child's. That causes me to justify an abortion. I've just justified a murder because I felt I was superior. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So this is an indication of how damaging it can be. We can even murder in that place and fully justify it. And society go along with us as well, justifying it. Does that make sense? Yes. So it's a very damaging emotion and it causes much soul damage. So the area that it damages us is in our core. So if we look at our soul, our half of the soul, right, what's happening is when we have emotions, so there's our two bodies, our spirit, physical body, spirit body. When we have these emotions in our soul of superiority, we engage behaviour that actually justifies a whole heap of unloving acts. And every unloving act has a feedback mechanism back into the soul of pain. So eventually, the pain of this soul is going to increase until it gets so intense that it begins looking at its behaviour. Right? And it actually has more pain for a person who treats themselves as superior than it has to the persons they treat as inferior. Which is appropriate if you think about it. Because they're in that place would do more to harm others than a person who's inferior. A person who is inferior does less generally to harm others than a person who feels themselves to be superior. So they engage more sin by believing they're superior. And as a result of engaging in more sin, there is more and there's going to be more pain to feel. Now and in the future. Yep. And
then that probably also affects them physically.
It will definitely affect them physically later in their life on earth, and then on top of that, affect them particularly when they pass. Later in their life on earth, often spirits, people who believe themselves to be superior are often attract some very dark spirits, because those spirits can motivate that person to do a lot of unloving things without that person considering their actions. Can you see why? It's sort of like, if you believe you're superior, I could motivate you to harm another person more easily than if you believed yourself to be inferior to that person. All right, so spirits are more attracted to people, wicked spirits, evil spirits are more attracted to people who believe themselves to be superior than they are to people who believe themselves to be inferior. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yep. So some of you in this audience have that problem. You're attracting spirits who are quite dark as a result of these feelings of superiority, particularly over your partner, but also over others. Yeah. Yep. Okay. How much time do I have? I've got one more question. Let's come down to Julie. Sorry, I'll go on.
Jesus, can you be superior and inferior depending on a situation? So if you're...
Of course you can.
So you just, you can do an action that's perpetrating superiority, and then in another situation, or male to female, you can be...
Correct. You see, in our childhood, there were many times when we were treated as superior, and there was many times we were treated as inferior in different circumstances and situations. As a result of that, there are many times when a certain situation comes along, we automatically engage the feeling of superiority. And then when another situation comes along that resembled a childhood inferiority situation, we automatically engage the feeling of inferiority. And we can have, and quite frequently we do have, 20 or 30 emotions relating to superiority and another 20 or 30 related to inferiority. Does that make sense?
Yes.
In God's case, God wants us to see everything as equal. So every inferiority is just as big a sin in some regards because it's harmful to a self. Yeah. Superiority is harmful to others. But inferiority is also harmful to others because it encourages superiority. Yes. It encourages abusive behaviour towards oneself.
Yes, that's what because sometimes when I'm really feeling inferior, I will purposely go to a superiority feeling, which is then perpetrated by anger.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
Quite frequently it's that fascinating. You might be in a partnership and he says something and you feel inferior. Now to defend that feeling, which feels terrible, you want to make yourself feel better than he is. And then you get into him about, you can't point that out to me because you do this and you do that and you do this. And now you're trying to be superior, and now you're engaged in the sin of being superior, harming the other person in order to avoid inferiority emotions. Yeah. Very complex series of emotions. It's interesting that both groups asked that same question in this session, yeah. Okay, well, we come to the conclusion of this particular presentation, the creation of my pain Q&A. Good questions, guys. Now, we'll have now a 30-minute break, so we come at 2. Is that right? Yeah, 2, and we'll get started on the facade. Thanks, guys. Pleasure.